happy to consider it. If you think that's a better way to manage the supervisory staff, that's fine with me.
Well, there is no... Are you telling me that that's the only two choices, that we have a bonus program or a...
No, what I'm saying, Kevin, is that we've come up with a way to do something that nobody else does because it's not the norm. It's what people get mad at in the government when they have these situations out there where an employee gets set $4,200 a year just because they've worked here for 15 years, have nothing to do with their performance. And then the public input, even if that was an issue, wouldn't even matter. You know, I'd be giving out $4,200 to somebody just because they were here. It didn't matter if they were good, bad, or indifferent. And what they did with the public, with you as a counselor, me as the manager. That's
the problem that I see, Mr. Wood. You're giving it out. It's at your discretion. And that's been my problem with the bonus program all along, was that it's at your discretion. You could be giving out the $4,200 because that person is doing exactly what you've instructed them to do. It may not be what the taxpayers expect from them or the taxpayers want from them.
Mr. Blais, you know, you and I have had conversations about this before.
That's correct.
And there's a process we follow, and there's a modified process that leads itself to what amount of money a person gets in a bonus program. It's based on the goals and objectives, the work plans, their ability to meet those things, and anything else that they do that's over and above what their normal expectation is. And it's quantifiable, okay? You know that. I've told you that before. You don't want to accept it, fine. But the bottom line is, again, it's not easy for me to do a bonus program because I get my department heads. They don't all get what they think they want to get. It would be easy for me to sit there and say, you know what, let's scrap it. Because you know what, it's easy for Mike Wood to let it go. And just to go back to the program that you seem to want to advocate that other cities and towns have, where you just get paid for being here.
I haven't advocated any program, Mr. Wood.
So what do you advocate, getting rid of it then?
Perhaps. But in fact, maybe it would be a good idea to look at getting rid of it because we have salaries for department heads that other communities are envious of. And you know what? And rightfully so. And does that mean we've attracted perhaps a higher caliber? Yes, that's entirely possible. But, I think it's a slap in the face, and this is my own opinion, Mr. Wood. I think it's a slap in the face to the taxpayer that they're paying the higher salary and allowing some type of discretionary bonus that they don't have any say in.
Well, Mr. Blais, the point is, okay, that you're assuming that the taxpayer out there is all upset because of a bonus program. They might be because of the way you phrase it, the way you explain it to people. I'm having an opportunity to explain it tonight. The council can decide whether they want a bonus program or not going forward. And if that's what the council wants, that's fine. But there's a discussion we all have to have. The department head should be involved in it, and the town council and myself. And if it's something that we feel we don't need to have in the future, fine. You also, as I mentioned earlier, have the opportunity not to fund it if you don't think it's appropriate to fund it because of finances. So having it in the plan doesn't guarantee it being funded. I have a hard time, thinking that, if you think that I don't have the ability to judge whether or not an employee deserves something more than what they get in their base salary, that's a decision and that's a judgment we can make about me. But as I said earlier, it's easy for me to say goodbye to it because it's much easier for me to talk to my department heads when one doesn't get it and the other one does. So I think it's proven itself. There's a process that we use. It's not an arbitrary process. And it's a discretionary thing on the council's at your discretion. You can keep it in, you can not keep it in, you can not fund it, you can fund it. So I think the safeguards are there. You can do what you think is appropriate. But I don't think it's, to try to tell the taxpayers that they're being somehow hijacked here is not correct. There was a trade-off that we made. There was a reasonable trade-off. Now, maybe 10 years later, it's something you as a council think differently about. Your prerogative to do that. But let's all talk about it, and let's have everybody who's affected by it have some input into what the alternative might be.
When you say everyone that's affected, the people that are really affected aren't just the department heads, but the taxpayers as well.
When you hire, Kevin, you hire people on a certain basis. They see what they get when they come in. You're a union employee. When you went in, you got a contract. You said, here's what I get.
That's correct.
When you change the contract, what happened? You had a chance to bargain it and change it, right?
Absolutely.
Well, if you're going to do the same thing with department heads who came in under those conditions, they should have a right to have some say in it, okay? That's all I'm asking you to do. Not just arbitrarily say, the taxpayers are not getting a fair shake, therefore let's get rid of this thing, because it was part of their compensation package when they were hired. And therefore, to make a change with it, which is certainly your prerogative, is something that has to take some time to do and be done the right way.
The point that I brought up earlier, Mr. Wood, was we have salaries that are unparalleled by other communities presently. And maybe that should be enough. And, Mr. Mainfield turned around and brought up a point earlier in regards to the dam. Well, after this management district goes into effect, if you don't like it, move. And you know what? If the employee doesn't like their new salary, and I'm not talking about cutting the pay, I'm talking about putting some type of control on it that, if they don't like, how little their bonuses are going to be. Now, in addition to the longevity, there's also cost of living that these people get to enjoy, and there are other increases as well. Am I correct?
Look, Kevin, as I said, the employees can judge for themselves whether they want to stay here, and nobody's keeping them here, okay? But those that are here should have an opportunity to have some say in what happens to them if we change some of the terms and conditions of their employment. There's safeguards built into the classification plan that are written right into it that say that you don't have to fund it if you don't think it's appropriate for the financial condition of the town is such that you don't think it should be funded in a given year. That doesn't mean I can go out and give them bonuses anyway, because if you don't fund it, I won't give them any money. All right? And you can argue and you can spin this about the salaries of the department heads here. Mr. Moran has been working on this. It's not just me. Mr. Moran is a citizen on a citizens board, a personnel board, that has worked with the town council and me over the many years here to try to get us to a point where our salaries are reasonable, competitive, and we get the quality people in here who can perform. And I will sit here and nobody's going to tell me that we have to perform. And there's reasons for that, and part of it is the compensation package. There are certain people who will never agree that paying Mr. Bernardo what he gets paid is worth it. But there's a lot of other people, if they understood what he did and the benefits that he brings to the town, for instance, using him as an example only, that it's worth that kind of money. And you can judge that, okay? But the bonus program is a minor issue. It's not a significant thing. And given what we did to get to the point where we had a bonus program, I think is a reasonable reason to leave it at least in place until you have a better discussion about it.
You stated that if we were to eliminate this, you would expect that the managers be involved in this elimination. Were they involved when you cut it from 10% to 5%?
No. Because Mr. Moran talked about it at the time. Mr. Moran made it clear that when we started this, 10% of the wages at the time, was not a lot of money even then. So now 10% of an $80,000 is $8,000. We felt that's too much money. So wiggling it down and bringing it down to 5% brings it back to the basic premise for what we started with. That's the type of money they were going to get back then, the same type of money they're going to get now. But having it go up to $7,000 or $8,000 was excessive in our opinion. And it's before you tonight to decide whether you think that's appropriate or not. If you don't think it's appropriate, if you don't vote on this, it'll still be at 10%. So if you don't vote something in per our recommendation, this isn't a new plan. This is in place now.
Well, it can be at 10% and you don't fund it. It could be 50%.
Yeah, but my point only is it's 10% now. So if you don't change it, which is certainly a prerogative, it stays at 10%. And later on, if you don't want to fund it, that's your prerogative as well. But we're trying to get the library. This is really not about that, unless you want to make it about that. It's about the library people being brought into this, and the recommendation to split, to create two engineering positions. That, one existed, to create a second engineering, not to fill the job, but if we need to have that type of engineering,